The alien Empress watched in silence, as the human declared, "Then I will be your husband." The great hall of the obsidian throne world stretched wide and cold, under a roof of black crystal that caught starlight like frozen screams. The air smelled of metal and ancient incense, and the low hum of machines that never slept. Thousands of Zareth nobles stood in perfect rows, their tall bodies covered in shifting scales that gleamed like oil on water, each one taller than any human, their extra arms folded tight against narrow chests, compound eyes watching everything at once. Empress Valoria sat high on her throne, carved from a single chunk of neutron star material. It pulled at the room like a small gravity well. Her crystalline skin flashed every color of dying suns. When she moved, 8 feet of pure command, wrapped in living armor, that breathed with her. She had ruled 300 worlds for 4 centuries. No one remembered a time before her voice decided life or death. Spiral arm. Today the humans came to hear the final terms of their surrender. Ambassador Elias Kane walked alone through the long corridor that led to the hall. His boots made soft thuds on the polished floor. No guards, no escort, just one man in a plain gray uniform, with scars running down his neck and one missing finger on his left hand. He carried nothing but a small data slate tucked under his arm. His face looked tired, but calm, like someone who had already decided the answer to every question. The nobles parted just enough to let him pass. Their hisses filled the air, like steam from cracked pipes. Some laughed low and sharp. Others clicked their mandibles in mockery. A lone ape among giants. They thought this was the best humanity could send. Elias stopped 10 paces from the throne base and looked up at Valoria without blinking. Her compound eyes focused on him, all at once, splitting his image into 1,000 tiny versions of himself. She leaned forward. The throne creaked. Under invisible strain. Humanity has lost every border fight for 10 years, the Empress said. Her voice came smooth and cold, like wind over glass. Your fleets burn, your colonies starve, your people beg for mercy. The Concord offers one last chance. Kneel. Give us your weapons, your rare metals, and your strongest worlds. We will place observers in every city, and let your species live as pets. Otherwise, we erase you from the map of stars. The hall waited for screams, for tears, for the human to fall on his knees. Instead, Elias stood straight, and met every fractured reflection of himself in her gaze. Your empire is very big, Empress, he said, his voice carried clear across the silence. But you still do not know what humans do when they have nothing left. Laughter rolled through the nobles like thunder. Some slapped their thighs with lower arms. Others flashed bioluminescent patterns of contempt. Valoria tilted her head. One sharp claw tapped the arm of her throne. And what do yours kind do when nothing remains, little ape? Elias smiled, small and sharp, like a blade hidden in shadow. I will marry you. The laughter died instantly. The hall went so quiet. The hum of the machines sounded loud. Every scaled face turned to the Empress. Some nobles opened their mouths, but no sound came out. Valoria stared down at him for a long count. Her crystalline skin flickered faster, brighter colors chasing across her body like lightning in a storm. Finally, she spoke again. You speak of marriage to an empress who has never taken a consort. You speak of binding yourself to a ruler who has ordered the death of your people. Explain this madness before I order your heart torn out for sport. Elias took one step closer. His boots scraped the floor. He looked up without fear. Your law is old and clear, he said. The bond of equals still waits in your archives. Any being who can prove match in courage and will may claim the right to stand beside the sovereign one. Offered for peace across the stars. Humanity will not kneel. We will not beg. We will not break. But if you want an end to this war, accept me as husband, One human beside you on the throne. No more fleets, no more graves, just partnership. The nobles exploded into noise, shouts, clicks, hisses, demands for blood, calls for instant execution. One tall advisor with silver scales stepped forward. "This is insult, Majesty," he cried. "This creature mocks our sacred rights. Tear him apart, feed him to the void engines." Veoria raised one clawed hand. The hall snapped silent. Again she studied Elias. His heartbeat stayed steady. She could hear it. Thump, thump, thump. No spike, no terror, only calm resolve. His scent carried sweat and metal, and something stubborn, like old stone. "You would chain yourself to monsters?" she asked, soft enough that only he and she could hear the words. "I would chain myself to the only being arrogant enough to think she can break us," Elias answered, "and then prove her wrong." From the inside, for a long moment, no one moved. The stars outside the crystal roof burned cold and distant. Veoria leaned back on her throne. Her claws tapped once, twice, 3 times. Then she spoke, words no one expected. "The challenge is accepted. The bond trials begin at first light. Prepare the claimant, or watch him die like all who came before." The nobles stared in shock. Some fell to their knees, others backed away, as if the air itself had turned poison. Elias gave one small nod, turned and walked out the way he came, his steps even, his back straight. No one stopped him. No one dared. Veoria watched him go. Her compound eyes followed every motion until the heavy doors closed behind him. Then she sat alone on her throne, surrounded by a court that no longer understood their Empress. The silence stretched long and deep. Outside in the corridor, Elias let out one slow breath. His hands shook just a little. He had rolled the dice of his whole species on a single impossible. Throw now. The real game began. The trials would test body, mind, and spirit against the strongest ruler in known space. Failure meant death. Success meant something no one had ever seen before. A human standing equal beside the alien Empress, who had crushed every enemy for centuries. Somewhere far away on human worlds, people waited for news of their ambassador. Some prayed, some sharpened knives, some loaded the last missiles. None of them knew yet that their fate now hung on one scarred man, one crazy declaration, and one Empress who had chosen to listen instead of kill. The stars kept burning overhead, cold and patient, waiting to see what would happen next. The alien Empress watched in silence as the human declared, "Then I will be your husband." The first light of the throne world's pale blue sun crept over the black spires and turned the obsidian palace walls into mirrors of cold fire inside the great hall. The nobles gathered again, their scales shimmering with nervous patterns. No one spoke above a whisper. The air felt thick with waiting and fear, and something new, something dangerous. Empress Veoria stood at the center of the raised platform. Her crystalline body caught every beam of light and threw it back in sharp rainbows. She wore no armor today, only the simple flowing robe of trial judges. Ancient cloth that shifted color with her mood. Right now it stayed deep, angry red. Her compound eyes swept the crowd, then locked on the single human who waited at the far end of the platform. Elias Kane stood alone again. His gray uniform looked small and plain against the towering architecture around him. He had not slept much. His eyes carried dark circles, but his hands stayed steady at his sides. He carried no weapons, no tools, nothing but the small data slate from yesterday, tucked inside his jacket. A silver-scaled advisor stepped forward, holding a tablet of glowing crystal. He cleared his throat with a sharp click, then read the ancient words in a voice that tried to sound important. "The bond of equals comes from the first days of our unity, when tribes fought and only the strongest could lead. Any being may claim the right, if they prove matched to the sovereign, in courage, in cunning, in will. 3 trials, body, mind, and blade. The claimant must survive all three, or perish. No mercy, no second chance. The Empress herself will judge every step. If the claimant succeeds, they stand as consort, equal in rule, until death claims one or both. The nobles hissed softly, some in anger, some in disbelief. No outsider had ever invoked the clause. No one had dared in 10,000 years. The last claimant, a mighty warlord from a fallen empire, had lasted only through the first trial, before his body broke apart under pressure. Vealoria raised one hand. The advisor stepped back. She looked down at Elias. Her voice carried clear across the hall. You heard the law, human. Do you still claim the bond, knowing death waits at every step? Elias met her gaze without looking away. I claim it, he said, simple and calm. I claim it for my people, for peace, and because no one else will step forward. Murmurs rolled through the crowd. Some nobles laughed. Others flashed warning colors across their scales. The advisor shook his head. Foolish ape, he muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. You will die screaming, and your species will follow soon after. Elias ignored him. He kept his eyes on Vealoria. Then let us begin, he said. The Empress nodded once, sharp and final. The first trial is the void trial, she announced. The claimant must survive 1 hour in the orbit of the black hole. Call Silent Maw. No ship, no heavy armor, only what he carries on his back, pressure suit, radiation shield, and his own will. The last who tried lasted 9 minutes before his flesh boiled away. The hall lights dimmed. A massive view screen opened above the platform. It showed the black hole, a perfect circle of nothing, surrounded by a glowing ring of trapped light and gas. Ships waited in formation, ready to carry the claimant to the drop point. Elias walked forward without hesitation. 2 Zareth guards flanked him. They led him to a small shuttle that looked like a metal coffin, more window than hull. He climbed inside. The guards handed him a battered emergency pressure suit, human design, old and patched many times. Duct tape held seams together. Frayed cables dangled from the life support pack. He pulled the suit on piece by piece, checked seals with careful fingers, then sealed the helmet. The suit hissed as it pressurized. He gave 1 thumbs up to the camera. Gesture. The shuttle launched fast and silent. It streaked toward the black hole. The view screen followed every move. The nobles watched. Some leaned forward. Others turned away, unable to look. Inside the shuttle, Elias sat strapped to the seat. He felt the pull grow stronger. Gravity tugged at his bones. The suit creaked under stress. Warning lights blinked red across his visor. Radiation levels climbing fast. Temperature dropping, then spiking. He worked quickly, rerouting coolant lines with bare fingers inside thick gloves. He whispered old human words to himself to keep focus. The stars must wait their turn, he said, soft like a promise. The shuttle reached the drop point. Doors opened. Cold vacuum rushed in. Elias unstrapped and pushed himself out into open space. He floated alone above the event horizon. The black hole pulled at him like an endless hand. His suit alarm screamed, pressure dropping, radiation burning through shielding. He twisted his body, used small thrusters from the pack to hold position exactly 100 kilometers from the point of no return. Any closer, and nothing escapes, not even light. Minutes passed, slow and cruel. Sweat stung his eyes inside the helmet. His skin prickled as radiation cooked the outer layers of his suit. He patched a leaking seam with more tape. Fingers numb now, breath shallow to save oxygen. He kept counting seconds in his head. 120, 140, 160. The view screen in the hall showed every detail. The nobles stared. Some whispered bets on how long he would last. Others stood frozen. Vealoria watched without moving. Her robe stayed deep red, but tiny flecks of silver began to appear in the cloth. At 30 minutes, Elias's suit started failing. Coolant lines froze, seals cracked. He felt cold creep into his legs, then heat, as systems overheated. He spoke again, this time louder, as if someone could hear him across the void. "Not yet," he said, "not today." He twisted, rerouted power from non-essential systems, fed it to the magnetic shield, barely enough to deflect the worst radiation particles. His vision blurred. Blood vessels in his eyes burst, tiny red stars across his sight. Still he held position. Still he counted. At 50 minutes, the nobles began to shift. Some looked away. Some muttered prayers to old gods. Valoria leaned forward just a fraction. Her claws dug into the arms of her seat. At 58 minutes, Elias's suit gave a final warning. Explosion imminent. He laughed once, short and rough inside his helmet, then whispered, "Come on, old friend. Hold together a little longer." The hour mark hit, the shuttle engines flared bright. It raced in, grabbed him with a magnetic grapple, pulled him back through the void. Doors slammed shut. Atmosphere rushed in. Elias collapsed to the deck, suit smoking, cracked, burned skin visible through rips in the fabric. Medics swarmed, but Valoria stepped down from the platform herself. She crossed the distance in long strides, knelt beside the human, opened his helmet with careful claws. His face looked pale, blood trickled from nose and ears, but his eyes stayed open, clear. "You live," she said, quiet surprise in her voice. Elias coughed once, tasted copper, then met her gaze again. "Told you," he rasped. "I'm persistent." The hall stayed silent. No cheers, no hisses, only stunned breathing. Valoria helped him to his feet, one strong arm around his shoulders. She looked at the nobles, then back at the human who refused to die. "The first trial is past," she declared. Her voice carried new weight. "The second begins tomorrow. Rest now, claimant. You have earned that much." Elias nodded, too tired to speak more. He let the medics lead him away, but before he left, he turned once, looked up at the Empress. "Thank you," he said, "for the chance." Valoria said nothing. She only watched him go, her robe now threaded with silver light like stars breaking through storm clouds. The nobles whispered among themselves, fear and wonder mixing in their voices. Outside the hall, the black hole spun on, silent and patient. It had claimed many lives, but today it let one small, stubborn human walk away alive. The game had only started, and already the rules felt different. The alien Empress watched in silence, as the human declared, "Then I will be your husband." The second dawn broke cold and sharp over the throne world. The palace grounds stretched wide under a sky the color of bruised steel. Massive pillars of black stone rose like silent giants. The nobles gathered once more. Their scales flashed uneasy patterns of green and violet. No one knew what to expect after the humans survived the void. Many whispered that the Empress would end the farce now. Others feared she might not. Empress Valoria stood on a wide circular platform, raised high above the ground. Her crystalline skin caught the pale light and sent it dancing across the crowd. She wore the judge robe again today, deep purple, threaded with thin lines of gold. Her compound eyes stayed fixed on the small figure who approached from the far side. Elias Kane walked slow. His body still hurt from the void trial. Burns covered his arms and neck. Fresh skin grafts showed pink under torn uniform sleeves. He moved with careful steps, but his back stayed straight. His face carried the same calm, stubborn look. Medics had begged him to rest longer. He refused. He said the trials waited for no one. The silver-scaled advisor stepped forward again. His voice rang out across the open ground. "The second trial is the mind trial," he declared. "The claimant and the sovereign link minds through the ancient neural bridge. Thoughts become weapons. Memories become blades. The stronger mind forces the weaker to kneel or shatters it completely. No physical harm shows on the body, but the soul breaks forever." The last claimant, a telepath of great power, lasted 20 heartbeats before his mind folded inward like wet paper. The crowd hissed low. Some nobles covered their eyes. Others leaned closer, eager for blood. Valoria raised one hand. Silence fell, instant and complete. "Human," she said, her voice soft, but carried far. "Do you understand what this means? Your thoughts will lie open to me. Every secret, every fear, every hope, I will see all of you, and you will see all of me. If your will falters, you die inside, long before your body follows." Elias stopped at the edge of the platform. He looked up, met her gaze without blinking. "I understand," he answered. "I have nothing to hide and nothing to lose. Let us begin." Two technicians in dark robes approached. They carried a thin arch of silver metal studded with glowing crystals. The neural bridge, ancient device older than most stars, they placed it between Elias and Valoria. One end hovered near his temple, the other near hers. Elias stepped under the arch without hesitation. Valoria did the same. The crystals flared bright white light, then settled to soft blue. A low hum filled the air. The link snapped into place. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the world inside their minds exploded. Valoria struck first. She poured her memories into him like floodwater. Ancient wars, genocide of whole species, stars cracked, open to swallow defiant worlds. The screams of billions echoed through his skull. Images flashed fast and brutal. Zarath fleets burning planets to ash, children torn apart by claws, rulers kneeling in pools of their own blood. She showed him the weight of centuries, the endless need to crush any threat before it grew. She showed him her own loneliness, buried deep under duty. The cold throne that never warmed. Elias staggered, his knees buckled for one heartbeat. Pain ripped through his face. The nobles gasped. Some cheered, thinking the end came quick. But he did not fall. He straightened, pushed back, not with rage, not with violence. He answered with memories of his own small, fragile, stubborn things. First humans on the moon. One small step, boot print in gray dust. Orchestras playing while cities burned in old wars. Parents reading stories to children, in shelters as bombs fell above. Lovers holding hands on hospital beds, while machines beeped final goodbyes. He showed her laughter in refugee camps. Children drawing pictures of blue skies they had never seen. He showed her humans rebuilding after every disaster, refusing to quit, refusing to forget hope. Valoria recoiled. The link shook like a bridge in storm. Her memories pushed harder, darker images of betrayal, of allies turned to dust, of lovers lost to politics, of an empire built on fear. Because trust always failed. She tried to drown him in despair. Elias kept sending back light, steady, persistent memories of strangers helping strangers, of scientists sharing cures across borders, of artists painting hope on ruined walls. He showed her the day humans first looked at the stars and decided to reach them, not because they could, but because they must. The nobles watched the platform. The two figures stood frozen, faces blank, eyes wide open. But sweat poured down Elias' skin. His hands clenched, fists trembled. Valoria claws dug into her palms. Crystal skin cracked. Tiny lines of light leaked out. Minutes stretched, pulsed, brighter then dimmer. The hum grew loud, then soft. The crowd held breath. No one moved. Inside the shared mind, Valoria pressed one final assault. She showed him the moment she ordered Earth's outer colonies glassed. The fires, the silence after. She expected him to break, to scream, to beg. Instead, Elias sent her one clear image. Himself standing in the hall yesterday saying the words, "Then I will be your husband, not out of fear, not out of hate, but because someone had to try something different. Because peace mattered more than pride. Because even an empress deserved someone who would stand beside her without wanting her throne." The link shattered like glass under hammer. Light flared, blinding white, then died. The arch went dark. Both figures swayed. Elias dropped to one knee, breathing hard. Blood trickled from his nose and ears. His eyes stayed open, though vision blurred. Valoria stood tall, but her robe flickered wild colors, storm of emotion. She stared down at him. Shock, clear, in every line of her body. "You did not fight with weapons," she said, voice low, almost whisper. "You fought with memory, with feeling." Elias wiped blood from his lip, looked up. "Humans do not break easy," he said. "We bend, we hurt, we keep going, because giving up never fixed anything." The nobles erupted. Noise rolled across the grounds, shouts, confusion, anger, wonder. The advisor stepped forward, face twisted. "Impossible," he cried. "The link cannot fail. No outsider survives the Empress mind." Valoria turned sharp. One claw pointed at him. "Silence, or join the dead," she said. The advisor froze, mouth open then closed. She looked back at Elias, studied him, long moments, then spoke words that stunned the crowd. "The second trial is past," she declared. Her voice carried new strength. "The claimant stands. The third begins at dusk. Prepare yourselves." Elias rose slowly. Legs shook, but he stood straight. He gave one small nod to Valoria. "Thank you," he said again. She did not answer. She only watched him as medics came forward to help him away. Her compound eyes followed every step until he disappeared behind the pillars. The sun climbed higher. The platform emptied slowly. Nobles talked in low voices. Fear mixed with awe. No one had ever seen an empress shaken. No one had ever seen a human push back against her mind and live. Dusk would bring the blade trial, the final test where body met body. No tricks, no shields, only skill and will. Elias would face Valoria herself, the undefeated warrior who had never lost a duel in 4 centuries. The palace grounds grew quiet. The days stretched long and tense. Everyone knew the end came soon, one way or another. A human would die, or something impossible would happen. The stars waited overhead, patient, cold, ready to witness whatever came next. The alien empress watched in silence, as the human declared, "Then I will be your husband." Dusk fell heavy over the throne world. The sky turned deep purple, streaked with thin lines of fading gold. The palace arena opened wide, a perfect circle of black stone surrounded by tiered seats that rose high into the night. Thousands of Zareth nobles filled every row, their scales glowing soft in the torchlight. Patterns of anticipation and doubt chased across their bodies. No one spoke loud. The air felt thick with the promise of blood. Empress Valoria stood at the center of the arena. She had changed from the judge robe into full battle armor, living crystal plates that shifted and breathed with her every move. The armor caught torch flames and threw them back like captured stars. Her monomolecular glaive rested easy in her upper hands, the blade longer than most humans were tall, thinner than a whisper, sharp enough to cut light itself. Her compound eyes scanned the crowd, then settled on the single entrance where the claimant would appear. Elias Kane stepped into the arena, his steps slow but sure. He wore no armor, only the same gray uniform, torn and blood-stained from earlier trials. Fresh bandages wrapped his burned arms and chest. The simple carbon steel knife from his homeworld hung at his hip. Plain handle, worn grip. Nothing special, nothing advanced. He carried no shield, no second blade, just the knife and his own body, scarred, tired, but unbowed. The silver-scaled advisor stood at the edge. His voice rang out sharp and final. "The third trial is the blade trial," he announced. "Single combat between claimant and sovereign. No tricks, no mercy, no quarter. The fight ends when one lies dead or yields. The Empress has never yielded. The Empress has never lost. Let the trial begin." The crowd hissed low, a sound like wind through dry leaves. Valoria raised the glaive in formal salute, then lowered it point down. Elias drew his knife, held it loose in his right hand. "Open ready." He gave one small nod. "Begin," Valoria said, quiet but clear. She moved first, fast as thought. The glaive swept in a wide arc meant to end it quick. Elias ducked. rolled forward under the blade, came up inside her reach. She twisted, brought the haft down like a club. He blocked with crossed forearms. The impact rang loud, sent pain shooting through old fractures. He staggered back, but stayed on his feet. The nobles leaned forward. Some shouted encouragement to their Empress. Others watched, silent faces, tight with something new. Uncertainty. Valoria pressed advantage, glaives spinning in blurring figure eights. Each swing could slice stone. Elias dodged, weaved, parried when he could. The small knife sparked against the monomolecular edge. Tiny flashes in the dark. He moved like water, never still, always slipping away. She struck again and again, blade whistling through air, missing flesh by inches. Blood appeared first on his shoulder, shallow cut, then across his thigh, deeper. He ignored it, kept moving, kept watching her eyes, her shoulders, the way her lower arms balanced for the next strike. He breathed steady, counted heartbeats, waited for the pattern. She grew faster, stronger. Centuries of combat flowed through her, every motion, perfect lethal grace. Elias bled more. Cuts opened on arms, chest, ribs. He left red footprints on black stone. Still he smiled, small, tight, dangerous. "You fight well," she said mid-swing, voice calm, almost curious for one so small. "You have not seen humans fight desperate yet," he answered, voice rough with pain. He lunged, sudden, low, aimed for her knee. She blocked, easy, swept the glaive backhand. He jumped back, but not fast enough. The tip grazed his side, opened a long line. Fire burned hot. He grunted, kept moving. Minutes stretched, the arena filled with clash of metal, scrape of boots, hiss of breath. Nobles murmured louder. Some cheered when blood flew, others fell quiet, watching a human last longer than any before. Changed tactics. She feinted high, then struck low. Elias read it, twisted aside, countered with a quick slash at her arm. The knife scored, crystal armor cracked, small line. She hissed surprise, pulled back, looked at the damage. "Impossible," she whispered. "No blade should mark this armor." "Humans make do with what we have," Elias said. He wiped blood from his mouth, kept the knife up. She attacked harder now, no holding back. Glaive blurred into storm. Elias dodged, rolled, ducked, parried. Every move cost him more blood, more strength. His vision narrowed, tunnel of focus, only her, only the blade, only survival. He taunted soft between breaths. "Come on, Empress, show me why they fear you." She roared, actual sound of rage. Glaive came down in overhead strike, meant to cleave him in two. Elias stepped inside, caught the haft with both hands, knife still gripped tight. He used her momentum, pulled her forward off balance. She stumbled. He kicked at her leg. She recovered fast, but slower than before. 17 minutes passed, brutal, endless. Elias bled from a dozen wounds. Legs shook, arms burned. Still he moved, still he fought. Valoria breathed harder now. Small cracks spread across her armor from repeated blocks. Her compound eyes narrowed. Focus, absolute. She pinned him at last, drove him back against the arena wall, glaive at his throat, point press just breaking skin. Blood trickled down his neck. Elias looked up, met her gaze. No fear, only calm. "Then make it quick," he whispered, "or make me your husband." Valoria froze. The glaive trembled in her hands. The crowd went death silent. Every noble held breath. Torches flickered loud in the quiet. She stared down at him, studied the human, covered in blood, still standing, still defiant. Her own hearts pounded loud enough for both to hear. She saw the stubborn light in his eyes, the refusal to break, the small smile that said he had already won something. Slowly, very slowly, she pulled the glaive back, point left his skin. The blade retracted with soft click. She stepped away, one pace, two. "You are not my equal," she said, voice low, almost gentle. Elias coughed blood, tasted iron, looked up anyway. "No," he rasped, "I am something worse. I am persistent." For a long moment, No one moved. Valoria turned to the crowd, raised both upper arms high. "The third trial is past," she declared, loud enough to echo off the walls. "The claimant lives. The bond is complete. Elias Kane stands as my consort, equal in rule from this day until the end." The nobles exploded. Noise crashed like waves. Shouts, confusion, cheers, anger, wonder. Some fell to their knees. Others backed away, faces pale. The advisor stood frozen, mouth open, no words came. Valoria walked to Elias, offered one clawed hand. He took it, grip firm, despite the blood. She helped him stand steady when his legs wanted to give. She looked at him close, compound eyes searching. "Why?" she asked, soft, so only he heard. "Why push this far? Why risk everything?" Elias met her gaze, wiped blood from his chin. "Because someone had to be first," he said. "Because war only makes more graves. And because I saw you carrying the weight alone. No one beside you, no one to share it. I thought maybe one stubborn human could change that." Valoria said nothing. She only held his hand tighter, then turned with him toward the palace steps. The crowd parted, silent now. Awe replaced anger. Torches burned steady overhead. Medics rushed forward, but she waved them back. She walked with him slow through the arena, past the nobles, past the advisor who bowed low. Without a word, they climbed the steps together, human and Empress, side by side. The stars came out full and bright above the throne world. They watched in silence as two figures disappeared into the palace. One small, one tall, one bleeding, one whole. Something new had begun. Something impossible. Something that might last. The night stretched long, patient, ready for whatever came next. The alien Empress watched in silence, as the human declared, "Then I will be your husband." Years passed quiet and steady after the trials. The throne world stayed the same. Black spires, cold stars, endless halls. But everything felt different. The palace corridors echoed with new voices, human voices, soft laughter, mixed with the sharp clicks of Zareth's speech. Children from both species ran through gardens, once silent, now filled with games and questions. Emperor Consort Elias Kane walked beside Empress Valoria. Most days they moved as one, tall crystalline form, and small scarred human, side by side, no longer strange, no longer impossible. Nobles who once hissed in anger, now bowed low, some with respect, some with careful caution. The old guard still grumbled in private corners, but fewer listened. The empire changed, slow like ice melting under steady sun. Human engineers arrived first, not as prisoners, not as servants, as partners. They brought blueprints for fusion drives that burned. Cleaner hydroponic farms that fed billions without stripping worlds dry. Terraforming rigs that turned dead moons green in decades. Zareth scientists watched, skeptical at first, then curious, then eager. They worked together late into nights, arguing in shared labs, mixing languages, until new solutions appeared on screens. Artists came next. Human painters, musicians, dancers. They filled grand halls with color and sound. Zareth nobles who never smiled learned to tap feet to human rhythms. Some tried human songs, awkward at first, then better. Crystal skin flashed happy patterns when melodies rose high. Diplomats from human worlds sat at council tables, spoke plain, talked peace, traded stories instead of threats. Borders opened, trade flowed both ways. Rare isotopes for advanced medicine. Old grudges faded under weight of shared work. Valoria changed too slow at first. She still ruled with iron voice, sharp decisions, fast. But she listened more. She asked Elias his thoughts before big orders. With him on balcony nights, watching stars, he told jokes, bad ones. She laughed once, short, surprise sound that echoed through empty halls. She tried again, laughed longer, clearer. The sound became familiar. One evening after a long council meeting, where old nobles tried to block human colony expansion, she walked with him through private gardens. Glowing flowers opened under moonlight. She stopped, turned to him. I was wrong, she said, simple, quiet words. You are not my equal. Elias raised one eyebrow, looked up at her tall form. She continued, You are my superior, in the only way that matters. You chose hope, when every calculation said despair. You stood, when others would kneel. You saw me not as ruler to fear, but as someone who needed someone beside her. He took her clawed hand in his scarred one. Fingers fit careful around sharp edges. Then I suppose, he said quiet, that makes me a very lucky husband. She looked down at him, compound eyes soft, no longer cold light. Danced across her skin, like gentle waves. She squeezed his hand, light enough not to hurt. You are more than lucky, she answered. You are necessary. They stood together long time, stars wheeled overhead, palace lights dimmed, gardens whispered, soft wind carried scent of night blooms. Somewhere far, a child laughed, human voice mixed with seraph chirp, perfect harmony. Coups came, tried old guard, nobles gathered secret fleets, whispered poison, plotted betrayal. One night they struck hard, assassins slipped through palace vents, bombs planted in throne room. Elias woke first, smelled smoke, pulled Vealoria from bed. She fought bare-handed, claws tearing crystal armor, cracking bone. He grabbed simple knife from bedside table, fought beside her back to back. No words needed, only motion. Guards, loyal ones, arrived late, found the Empress and her consorts standing over broken bodies, blood on floor but not theirs. Vealoria executed the leaders herself, quick, clean, no trial, no mercy. Face blank. He said nothing when she turned to him, covered in ichor. Necessary, he said, only that. She nodded once, then pulled him close, held him tight, despite mess they made. The empire grew stronger not from fear, from trust. Humans taught Zareth to bend a little. Zareth taught humans to stand taller. Together they faced old enemies, new threats, pirate fleets, rogue AIs, dying stars. They met every challenge as one, no longer conqueror and conquered, but partners, equals in rule and in life. Decades later, on the same balcony where they first spoke alone, Vealoria stood with Elias, gray now streaked, his hairlines deeper on his face. She stayed timeless. Crystal skin still caught starlight, but softer, somehow kinder. They watched a new fleet launch, human and Zareth ships side by side, silver and black hulls gleaming under same sun. Do you regret it, she asked, soft, never asked before. Do you regret binding yourself to me, to this throne, to this life? Small, familiar, dangerous smile. Not for 1 second, he answered. I got to see an empire learn how to hope. I got to stand beside the strongest being in the galaxy and call her wife. I got to prove humans do not break easy. What more could any man want? She leaned down, touched forehead to his, gentle, careful gesture, learned from him long ago. Then stay persistent, she whispered, always. He laughed, quiet sound, full of warmth. Always, he promised. The alien Empress watched the stars in silence, no longer alone, no longer cold. Light played across her face like dawn breaking, slow and sure. Beside her the human stood steady, scarred hand in hers. They watched together as new worlds bloomed, as old wounds healed, as two species became something greater than either alone. The throne world spun on, patient, steady. The galaxy turned, quiet witness to a bond no one predicted, a marriage born of defiance, sealed in blood, strengthened by time, a story told across stars in whispers and songs. The day the humans said, "Then I will be your husband," and the Empress chose to listen instead of kill. Peace held, not perfect, not easy, but real, lasting because one stubborn man refused to kneel, and one mighty ruler learned to share her throne. The stars kept shining overhead, endless and bright, ready for whatever came next.